I was 12 when I first realized I was different. My eyes kept drifting to Arjun, the neighbor's son, instead of the girls my friends wouldn't shut up about. Which girl do you like? My best friend Rohit nudged me during recess. I shrugged, trying to play it cool. None of them, I guess. What? Are you blind? Rohit laughed. Look at Priya's hair. But I was too busy stealing glances at Arjun playing cricket. That night I tossed and turned in bed, my mind racing. What was wrong with me? I squeezed my eyes shut, praying to wake up normal. Years passed and those feelings didn't go away. They got stronger. One day, my mom cornered me in the kitchen. Atar, when are you going to bring a nice girl home? I froze, nearly dropping the plate I was drying. I'm focusing on my studies, man. She clicked her tongue, these modern boys always with excuses. If only she knew, but I couldn't tell her. Not in our conservative neighborhood, not in India. So I nodded and smiled, burying my secret deeper with each passing day. Years of dodging my mother's questions finally caught up with me. One evening, she and Dad sat me down, beaming like they'd won the lottery. We found the perfect girl for you, Mom gushed. It's Daisy. It's my childhood friend, the girl next door, the one I'd known since we were in diapers. What? I choked out. Dad clapped me on the back. You two have always been close. It's ideal? I sat there stunned. Daisy, marriage. My mind raced back to all those times we'd played together, shared secrets. But never once had I felt that spark. The next day, Daisy and I met at our favorite chai stall. So, she said, stirring her tea nervously. I forced a smile. Crazy, huh? She nodded, relief washing over her face. I was worried you'd be weirded out. Nah, we're friends, right? I said, ignoring the knot in my stomach. We can make this work. As we chatted, I convinced myself this was for the best. Daisy was kind, smart, and my parents adored her. Maybe I could learn to love her. Maybe this was the push I needed to be. Normal. Just that night I stared at the ceiling, whispering to myself, I can do this, I can be the son they want. But deep down, a voice whispered back, at what cost? The day I left for college, Mom packed my bags like I was going to war. Daisy saw me off, planting a chaste kiss on my cheek. Study hard, she smiled. We've got a wedding to plan when you're done. I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. At orientation, we were huddled together for a group photo. That's when I first saw him. Guitar, move to that side, the photographer barked. You're clashing with Sean. Stand next to Rajan instead. I shuffled over, my arm brushing against Rajan's. He flashed me a smile that made my heart skip. With our luck, we might catch graduation by the time he finishes, Rajan whispered. I couldn't help but laugh just as the camera flashed. Later in class, I realized I'd forgotten my textbook. Panic set in until Rajan slid into the seat next to me. You can share mine, he offered, scooting closer. Our shoulders touched as we huddled over the book. I caught a whiff of his cologne, and suddenly paying attention to the lecture became impossible. After class, Rajan turned to me. I'm Rajan, by the way. Atar, I replied, hoping he couldn't hear how fast my heart was beating. Want to grab some chai? He asked. I hesitated, Daisy's face flashing in my mind. But then Rajan smiled again, and I found myself nodding. Sure, I said. I'd like that. As we walked to the canteen chatting and laughing, I felt a spark I'd never experienced before. And for the first time in years, I didn't try to bury it. Weeks flew by, and Rajan and I became inseparable. We'd stay up late, cramming for exams and sharing stories over chai. One night, sprawled on my dorm room floor, Rajan asked, So, what's the deal with you and Daisy? I froze. How'd you know about her? He shrugged. You mentioned her once, girlfriend? Fiancé, actually, I muttered, avoiding his eyes. Whoa, engaged already? You sly dog. He punched my arm playfully, but something in his voice sounded off. I forced a laugh. Yeah, childhood sweethearts and all that. Rajan nodded, his smile not quite reaching his eyes. Lucky girl. So the conversation shifted, but something had changed. I found myself talking about Daisy more, almost like I was trying to convince myself. Rajan, I need your help, I said one day. I'm terrible at romance. How do I sweep Daisy off her feet? He paused, then grinned. Well, first you gotta set the mood. As he described elaborate date ideas, I realized I was hanging on his every word, imagining him in Daisy's place. What about you? I asked, desperate to change the subject. Any exes I should know about? His smile faltered. There was someone, but it didn't work out. I wanted to press further, but the pain in his eyes stopped me. That night, lying in bed, I couldn't shake the image of Rajan's sad smile. I told myself I was just being a good friend, looking out for him. But deep down, I knew it was more than that. And it terrified me. It was our last week before graduation. Rajan had been acting weird, grumpy, distant. I couldn't stand it anymore. All right, spill it, I said, cornering him in our dorm. What's eating you? He sighed, running a hand through his hair. It's nothing, Atar. Bullshit. Is it about that ex you mentioned? His eyes widened. Sort of. Look, I have an idea. Let's play a game. A game? I raised an eyebrow. Yeah, truth or dare, for old times' sake. I shrugged. Okay, hit me. I dare you to let me blindfold you. As my heart raced. What? Why? Just trust me, he grinned. Against my better judgment, I agreed. The room went dark as he tied the cloth around my eyes. Now stay still, he whispered. I heard movement, then felt a pair of soft lips press against mine. My body reacted before my brain could catch up, kissing back with a passion I'd never felt before. When he broke apart, I was breathless. Daisy, I whispered, even though I knew it wasn't her. The blindfold came off. Rajan stood there, eyes blazing. It was me, Atar. I like you. And I think you like me too. Reality came crashing down. I stumbled back, my mind reeling. What the hell, man? I sputtered. I'm with Daisy. Pain flashed across his face. Atar, please. But I was already out the door, running from the truth I'd been fighting for years. I avoided Rajan like the plague after that night. Graduation loomed, and with it, the weight of my future with Daisy. But I couldn't get that kiss out of my head. The day before graduation, I overheard some classmates talking. Did you hear? Rajan's leaving for America right after the ceremony. My heart dropped. I hadn't even said goodbye. That night, I tossed and turned, replaying every moment with Rajan. His laugh, his touch, the way he looked at me. It hit me like a ton of bricks. I was in love with him. I grabbed my phone, fingers shaking as I typed. Rajan, we need to talk, please. No response. The next morning, I searched for him everywhere. The ceremony was a blur. As soon as it ended, I pushed through the crowd, desperate to find him. Rajan, I called out, spotting him near the parking lot. He turned, eyes widening. Atar? Don't go, I blurted out. I think I love you. His face crumpled. You think? Otter, I've been in love with you for years, but you're engaged. To a woman. I can explain. He held up a hand. It's too late. My flight leaves in an hour. But, goodbye, Atar, he said softly, climbing into a waiting taxi. I stood there, watching the love of my life drive away, feeling like the biggest fool in the world. As the taxi disappeared, reality set in. I had to face Daisy, my parents, and the life I'd been pretending to want. But first, I had to face myself. I stumbled through the next few days in a daze. Rajan was gone, and my wedding to Daisy loomed closer. During a festival at Daisy's place, she pulled me into an empty room, her eyes sparkling. Atar, she whispered, leaning in to kiss me. I tried to reciprocate, to feel something, but all I could think about was Rajan's kiss. Daisy sensed my hesitation. What's wrong? We're almost married anyway. She guided my hand to her waist, but I felt nothing. No spark, no desire. Daisy, stop, I said, pulling away. Atar, her voice trembled. I couldn't bear to see the hurt in her eyes, but I knew I had to be honest. I can't do this, I choked out. I can't marry you. What? Why? Tears welled up in her eyes. Because I took a deep breath. I'm in love with someone else. Who? She demanded. Is it Pinky? Shanti? I shook my head, tears streaming down my face. It's Rajan. Silence fell between us. I waited for her anger, her disgust. Instead, she hugged me. Oh, Atar, she sighed. How long have you been hiding this? Our whole life, I admitted, breaking down in her arms. We talked for hours, about my struggles, my fears, and finally about Rajan. You need to go after him, Daisy said firmly. But what about our families, a wedding? Tracy squeezed my hand. Let me handle that. You've suffered enough. As I left her room that night, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. But the hardest part was yet to come, telling my parents the truth. The next morning, I woke up with a pit in my stomach. Today was the day. I found my parents in the living room, Mom fussing over wedding invitations. Ma, Pa, I said, my voice shaking. I need to talk to you. They looked up, smiling. If only they knew what was coming. What is it, Beta? Mom asked. I took a deep breath. The wedding, it's off. The silence was deafening. What nonsense is this? Pa finally sputtered. I can't marry Daisy, I continued, my heart racing. Because I'm gay. Mom's face went pale. Pa's turned red. No son of mine is. P.A. couldn't even say it. It's true, I pressed on. I'm in love with a man. His name is Rajan. What's that boy from college? Mom whispered. I knew he was trouble. He's not trouble, Ma. He's the best thing that's ever happened to me. P stood up, shaking with anger. Get out. Pa, please. Get out, he roared. Tears streaming down my face, I rushed to my room, throwing clothes into a bag. As I reached the front door, Mom called out, "Atar, don't do this. We can fix you." I turned back one last time. There's nothing to fix, man. This is who I am. With that, I stepped out into the unknown, leaving behind everything I'd ever known. I've seen my phone buzzed. A message from Daisy. "Are you okay? Do you need a place to stay?" Despite everything, I smiled. At least I wasn't completely alone. As I walked away from my childhood home, I felt a mix of terror and exhilaration. For the first time in my life, I was free to be myself. Weeks passed. I crashed on Daisy's couch, job hunting by day and battling my demons by night. Rajan's silence was deafening. Then came graduation day. I almost didn't go, but Daisy insisted. "You earned this," she said, straightening my tie. "Plus, he might be there." Thus my heart raced at the thought. The ceremony dragged on. I scanned the crowd, but no sign of Rajan. As we tossed our caps, I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned, and there he was. "Rajan?" "Congratulations," he said softly. "You came back," I breathed. He nodded. "Couldn't leave without my degree, or without seeing you one last time." Just as the words tumbled out before I could stop them, I broke it off with Daisy. I came out to my parents. His eyes widened. "Atar, I love you," I blurted out. I was an idiot before, but I know now. It's always been you. Rajan stared at me, emotions warring on his face. "What about your family? Your life here?" I took his hand. "You're my family now, if you'll have me." For a moment, the world stood still. Then Rajan pulled me close, kissing me right there in front of everyone. Whispers erupted around us, but I didn't care. For once, I was exactly where I was supposed to be. When we finally broke apart, Rajan grinned. "My flight to America leaves in 3 hours. Want to come with me?" I laughed, giddy with joy and terror. "Just like that." He shrugged. "Why not? We've wasted enough time, don't you think?" Looking into his eyes, I knew there was only one answer. "Let's go." Hand in hand, we raced out of the auditorium towards our new life together. 1 year later, I'm sprawled on our tiny apartment couch in New York, Rajan's head in my lap, as we video chat with Daisy. "Sorry." Hassan unplugged the router again. Daisy laughed, her son's chubby hands reaching for the screen. "No worries," I grinned. "Some of us can be patient." I shoot a pointed look at Rajan, who sticks out his tongue. "How's the hubby?" Rajan asks. "Working late, but good. This little monster keeps me busy," Daisy says, tickling Hassan. We chat for an hour, catching up on life back home. Daisy's happily married now, and my heart swells seeing her so content. After we hang up, Rajan turns to me. "You miss it, don't you, Indy, your family?" "I consider this sometimes, but I wouldn't trade this for anything." He kisses me softly. "Even when I leave my socks on the floor?" Even then, I laugh. Later that night, as we're falling asleep, Rajan mumbles, "We could get married too. If you want." Our breath catches. "Are you proposing?" He opens one eye. "Maybe. Is it working?" I pull him close, overcome with love for this man who turned my world upside down. "Yes," I whisper. 1,000 times yes. As I drift off, I think about how close I came to a life of lies and unhappiness. How one kiss, one moment of bravery, changed everything. It wasn't easy, it's still not easy, but lying here, with Rajan in my arms, I know I made the right choice. This is where I belong, this is my happily ever after.